What happens when the man behind some of the most iconic voices in animation suddenly loses his own voice forever? For millions of fans, Tom Kane wasn't just a voice actor. He was childhood. He was the comforting father figure in the Powerpuff Girls. He was the terrifying voice of him that gave kids nightmares. He was the legendary narrator opening every episode of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. And for an entire generation of Star Wars fans, he became the voice of Yoda himself. But in one of the cruelest twists imaginable, the man whose career depended on his voice spent the final years of his life unable to speak. On May 18th, 2026, legendary voice actor Tom Kane passed away at the age of 64 after complications from a devastating stroke he suffered back in 2020. And today, we're looking back at the incredible life, career, and legacy of the man whose voice shaped modern pop culture forever. But before we begin, I want to hear from you. What's the very first Tom Kane role you remember hearing as a kid? Was it Yoda, Professor Utonium, the Clone Wars narrator? Drop your memories in the comments, because this video is basically a celebration of the soundtrack of our childhoods.
Tom Kane's journey into voice acting didn't begin in Hollywood fame. It started the way many legendary careers do, quietly. Back in the 1990s, Kane started building a reputation inside recording booths and gaming studios, taking smaller voice roles and proving he could transform his voice into almost anything. Then came the role that changed everything. In 1998, Kane joined the Powerpuff Girls, and what made his performance so insane was that he voiced two completely opposite characters at the same time. First, there was Professor Utonium. Warm, calm, protective. The perfect cartoon dad. But then, there was him. And if you grew up watching Cartoon Network, you already know exactly how disturbing that voice was. Him could go from soft whispers to terrifying screams in seconds. It was creepy, theatrical, unpredictable, and honestly unlike anything animation had heard before. That dual performance instantly proved Tom Kane wasn't just talented, he was operating on another level. And suddenly, he was everywhere. He became Mr. Harriman in Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. He played Lord Monkey Fist in Kim Possible. And without most people even realizing it, his voice entered millions of homes every single day through Disney DVDs. If you grew up in the 2000s, you definitely remember this. Fast play will begin automatically. Yup, that was Tom Kane too. And now I need to know something important. Did you actually let Disney Fast Play run, or did you instantly mash the menu button every single time? Be honest in the comments. Now here's where Tom Kane's career became truly legendary. Because while animation fans knew him from cartoons, Star Wars fans knew him as something even bigger. He first started working with Lucasfilm in the late 1990s on games like Star Wars X-Wing vs. TIE Fighter and Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. And very quickly, the studio realized something incredible. Tom Kane could replicate iconic voices almost perfectly. That ability eventually led him to become one of the primary voices of Yoda outside the films themselves. For over 2 decades, Kane voiced Yoda across video games, animated projects, theme park attractions, and Star Wars media. And for many fans, honestly, his Yoda became the definitive version. But then came 2008, and this is where his legacy became immortal. Because Star Wars: The Clone Wars didn't just give Tom Kane one important role, it gave him 3. He voiced Yoda, he voiced Admiral Wolf Yularen, and he delivered those unforgettable dramatic episode openings every single week. War, the Republic crumbles under attack. That booming narration became part of the identity of the Clone Wars itself. And what's crazy is that some fans didn't even realize all those voices were the same person. That's how insanely versatile he was. Quick question for all the Clone Wars fans watching. What was your favorite opening narration from the series? Because some of those intros honestly felt more epic than movie trailers.
And if you weren't watching cartoons or Star Wars, there's still a good chance you heard Tom Kane screaming through your headset at 2 a.m. during a zombies match. Because Kane also voiced Takeo Masaki in Call of Duty World at War and later entries in the Call of Duty Zombies storyline. His performance gave Takeo this intense mix of honor, rage, and warrior discipline that fans absolutely loved. For a lot of gamers, those zombies characters became iconic, and Tom Kane helped make that happen. So I've got to ask the COD fans here too, what's the most legendary Takeo quote of all time? But in late 2020, tragedy struck. Tom Kane suffered a devastating stroke. The damage affected the speech center of his brain and left him with aphasia, a condition that severely impacts the ability to speak, read, and communicate. Think about how heartbreaking that is for a second. A man whose entire life was built around his voice, suddenly losing the ability to use it. In 2021, Kane officially retired from voice acting. His final performances were preserved in Lego Star Wars, The Skywalker Saga, and the premiere narration for Star Wars The Bad Batch. And honestly, knowing that makes those performances hit even harder now. But here's the part of the story that says the most about who Tom Kane really was. Not the actor, not the celebrity, the person.
After news of his death broke, tributes flooded in from across animation, gaming, and the Star Wars community. Craig McCracken shared emotional artwork honoring him. Roger L. Jackson remembered him as a gentleman and a gentle man. And Cartoon Network thanked him for helping create the childhood memories of millions. But the truth is, Tom Kane isn't really gone. Because every time someone rewatches the Clone Wars, every time someone hears Yoda in a video game, every time a parent puts on the Powerpuff Girls for their kids, his voice lives on. And for a voice actor, there may be no greater immortality than that. Tom Kane helped define animation, gaming, and pop culture for an entire generation, and his work deserves to be remembered with the respect it earned. So if you enjoyed this tribute and want more deep dive stories about the legendary voices behind your favorite childhood characters, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. And before you go, leave one final comment. What Tom Kane performance will you remember forever? May the Force be with him. Always.